What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty P here with another episode of Steelers War Room. Today, I wanted to provide you with a fan perspective on the Steelers and can they beat Baltimore this weekend? Can they go away to Baltimore and beat the Ravens, who have stolen the division from the Steelers? You could argue that. Or have won it outright, really, and with the way that the Steelers played in their final 3 games of the season. 3 games in 11 days, it was really hard. There were injuries, George Pickens, for example. TJ Watt's been playing injured, etc. But can the Steelers go into Baltimore and snatch what most people in the league would think is a very unlikely victory, especially considering the Steelers are like 8.5-point underdogs? Can the Steelers do that? And that's what I think a lot of fans are sitting there and saying probably no. And you know what? The head on me says absolutely not. The heart on me says absolutely yes. But I'm kind of happy that this is actually what the Steelers face this week. I'm actually happy that this isn't the Houston Texans. And Arthur Moats talked about this on his channel soon after it was decided the Steelers would be playing Baltimore. And he talked about the ability for the Steelers to get up in it. The Ravens are the most known team for this Steelers team. Now, this Steelers team is not actually built, in my belief, to tackle the Ravens. It is from a defensive perspective, but it's not from an offensive perspective. Now, we saw Big Ben draw plays up in the dirt and beat the Ravens because they weren't expecting it. We saw Kenny Pickett do the same thing because he ran the football and they thought that he would not run the football against a tough Ravens defense. And it worked for him too with that little lob pass up to Najee. The Steelers are going to have to be unconventional in this game to win it. Or do they? I think they need to be unconventional when we look at what they've done versus what they've done so far. I think the tight end's key. I think Connor Hayward, Darnell Washington, Pat Freiermuth. Now you might say, but they've used them. But they've rarely used all three at once on the same on the field in that passing game. You don't see a set where 2 of those blokes are going to get the ball. You see a set where it's like to move into the slot, or you see down the flat to Darnell. You see Connor Hayward getting a short passing game, sometimes behind the line of scrimmage or between the line of scrimmage and the first down marker. But you don't see them like up and down seam routes. You don't see them on some trick moves on screen plays, etc. That's where I think the Steelers could actually have a lot of success against this Ravens team. Likewise, I think Najee in the passing game and Warren in the running game. I don't think we've seen enough of that. I think being able to do that, and if you can get a deep pass or two, then being able to do draw plays as well, run plays with a draw. I actually think this team could see a little bit of success there. But if they think they're going to throw it deep to with Marlon Humphreys there, and Nate Wiggins, who's a super speedy cornerback as well, and Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith, this game is going to be well over at halftime. Equally, the same thing if you think you're going to run it up the middle, run it up the guts, and get a bunch of yardage and try and hold the ball longer and win out the clock. That's not going to win this game. And this is where I kind of think Arthur Smith is actually going to earn his money this season. Not saying he hasn't, done anything this season. He's been better than Matt Canada. They didn't bring him back and they upgraded. I wouldn't care. I'd be comfortable with it. I wouldn't be upset that he's leaving. But if you've got something in the playbook that is worked, or that you've saved, or that's worked once or twice against a team in a game, and you've not been able to get there and execute it, this is the week to frickin' do it. Because there's no more 2025 or 2024 season after this week if you lose. And that's why I kind of like the Steelers in this game. I know the title, can they actually get a win? Can they pull it off? I think they're more capable of it than what people are giving credit for. And it's not just the fan perspective in me. I think the defense can shut down Lamar Jackson. I think the offense can find a way against that defense. If it takes 5 field goals from Chris Boswell, we'll sow the F what, we'll go on, we'll play another week. Do I think the Steelers can win the Super Bowl? Not unless I see something massively different. But the Steelers have won a Super Bowl with their back against the wall and gone on the road through the playoffs. Yes, they had some infinitely better players before everyone destroys them in the comments. than a lot of what they've got right now in a number of positions. But they also didn't have some of the players that the Steelers have at a lot of positions as well. So I think that's going to be interesting to see through the course of this week, is getting a feel for where this team is sitting. Now, it's not Cam Hayward's final game, in all likelihood. He's re-signed a new deal, unless something crazy happens. It might be Russell Wilson's final game at the Steelers. I don't think so. It might be Najee Harris's final game for he's hasn't signed anything. Who knows? There's going to be other players that it will be their final game. I don't think we'll see Cam Sutton back. I think he's was part of the problem during the three losses in a row. Well, I mean, it became 4, but the 3 in 11 days. There are a bunch of other players. Kazi's another one. We can go through a list. We'll look at those guys once the season closes, and who could be back and who could be not on the channel. But my point being is that this team is going to have some names and faces that we have been used to over the last few years as Steelers fans leave. Now, a lot of the fan base out there are probably saying that is a freaking good thing. Right? There's some names that I think, I don't want to see Pierre in a Steelers jersey again, unless he's been elevated from a practice squad. But to the guys in the 53 men on the starting roster, to the 50 men that get the hat, to the just under 70 what it is with the practice squad guys, the people that are on that Steelers roster, plus your injured reserve guys. Those guys mean something. They're guys they've trained with through training camp through multiple years. They're guys they've been with 6 months out of the year plus. So for them, that is actually important. And I think if you look at what the Steelers do and the Steelers culture, put aside what people think about Mike Tomlin and the winning, double-digit games or scraping the playoffs and then getting knocked out. Those blokes, if they're half as committed as what they articulate in a press conference, they want to play for their mates. Now, they might just get beat by a better damn team on Saturday night. They might. But they really could have won that Bengals game. If they really could have won that. The fact they lost that still shits me, to be honest. That part of my language, it just shits me. They should have won that game. How they didn't get those yards, how they I don't that's why I didn't do a reaction video to it on its own. I thought about it for your Monday out there, but in the US, but I just couldn't do it. I was too cranky about it. But they are capable of winning this game. If you like a bet, it's pretty helpful. But in terms of the odds, you can make some money. But don't be surprised to see the Steelers win. I guess that's my point. I think they're capable of it. Don't be surprised by it. But if they do win, then we all go through the hurdle of, well, can they win again? And that's a week-by-week proposition. George Pickens has to play a lot better. I mean, this is what I'm finding interesting about wide receivers at the moment. Look at Tyreek Hill in the last 24 to 48 hours and everything that's going on there with Miami. And him, it's probably a money thing. They either resolve the money or he's out. Very AB-like. Stephon Diggs forced his way out of the Bills. There's some wide receivers doing some silly things, and George Pickens doesn't have the best reputation in the league. And the performance he had last week, he better be fired up this week, or he's not going to get paid the money he thinks he is. The Steelers aren't going to pay a second-round wide receiver if they don't think he's going to perform. Right now, I think he'd struggle to get much more than Juju's contract, if you actually look at it. People might say, we will pay him, but then if you're paying him on potential. You're not paying him on performance, right? So that's something, again, we'll look at once the season comes to a close. But I wanted to give you sort of these thoughts and how I'm feeling about it. I feel like this has been a long season. It's felt definitely as long as the 18 weeks. There's been some massive highs and some massive downs. Obviously as a fan, going and seeing the Steelers was awesome this year. I'm actually excited for the off season. I'm excited for how this team can get better. But I don't want the off season to start next week. I want the off season to start, in mid to end of Feb after the Super Bowl. Or at least start later in January. That would be nice. But win, lose, or, there's not going to be a draw. Again, there's got to be a result. But win or lose, as long as this team walks away and has left it all out there on the field. And I think that is, to me, what I think is frustrating for a lot of fans. I'm not sitting here questioning that most of the players on that field are committed. But you sometimes wonder, did you leave it all out there on the field? Right? And I just don't think they do all the time. I'm not saying they're not trying. I'm not saying they're not doing everything they can to win. It's just you sometimes you live with a bit of a sour taste in your mouth after a game, and you kind of go, well, they really, we know they were trying, but were their heads in gear? Were they focused? And that's where I can see where people get critical of Mike Tomlin. But I do agree with what Arthur Moat said on his show on the weekend. Mike Tomlin don't catch the football like a receiver. Mike Tomlin don't miss tackles. Mike Tomlin doesn't pout on the sideline when the quarterback doesn't throw him the ball. He might pout for other reasons, like the shitty refs and the refereeing we've seen this season has been horrific in a lot of instances. But Mike Tomlin doesn't miss a read, in coverage, etc. So from that perspective, the players have got to stand up. If the players want to be successful, if the players want to win a playoff game, if the players want to make an AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl, the players have to step up on the day. And we've seen lapses across the board, and unfortunately some really key moments, particularly in this latter half of the season. We always knew it was going to be the gauntlet. And this is what I also will finish the video in saying. I found it hilarious. I should find it annoying, but I find it hilarious how many people are now disappointed that the Steelers are 10-7. Yeah, they had a shitty end of the season. But at the start of the year, most people were saying this was a max 7-8 win team. Unless you're a homer and a big fan, and we talked about potentially 12 wins. But the majority of the league, the majority of the pundits out there, and quite a number of Steelers fans were all saying, no, this is going to be a 8 or below win team. I saw stuff where this is going to be a 5 or 4 win team. The team won 10 games, lost a couple of games, pretty close, and then in other games they were blown out. But you play the Ravens, Philadelphia, and the Chiefs in 11 days at the end of the season, missing your best offensive playmaker, outside of Jalen Warren, but your best wide receiver threat. Like, good luck, right? And George Pickens has been good toward the end of seasons as well. I think that's something that's gone. We're sort of flown under the radar as people haven't thought about how important he's been. Like, thinking about the Raiders game and the Bengals a couple of years back. So, from that perspective, I think that's the other challenge with this team is that everyone's upset because they had all those wins where they set themselves up to get in the playoffs. Everyone's upset they've gone in. And I know the stats. I know that's been, it's the first time in almost 30 years since a team's made the playoffs and having lost 4 games in a row. Like, it's nuts. But they still won 10 games, right? It wasn't 9-8. It wasn't 8-9. They won 10 games. They should have probably won 12-13, but they didn't. But they're in the playoffs. So, you let me know in the comments, do you think the Steelers can win this week against Baltimore? You let me know. Let me know if you think they can't, and if they can't, how much are they going to get beat by? We've got more videos coming out on the channel as we're ramping back up using our new platform. And as always, go Steelers.